The average knowledge worker checks their phone 144 times a day. Every time we switch tasks to look at a notification, we incur a cognitive penalty that reduces our overall productivity by up to 40%. Because of this constant intake, we are processing more information in a single day than most human beings in antiquity encountered in their entire lifetimes. We have built a society optimized for the acquisition of information and the pursuit of goals, yet our baseline well-being remains stagnant. The Tao Te Ching is the foundational text of Chinese philosophy. While traditionally attributed to a 6th century BCE figure named Laozi, modern scholarship places its composition closer to the 4th or 3rd centuries BCE, following the archaeological discovery of the Godian and Mawangdui texts. This analysis treats the text not as a mystical artifact, but as an early attempt to map the cognitive structures that modern empirical science is currently investigating. To understand this mapping, we begin with Chapter 1, which introduces a set of paradoxes concerning language, desire, and the quality of human attention. These 81 words provide a diagnostic framework for the specific cognitive frictions of the 21st century. The way that can be spoken of is not the changeless Tao. The name that can be named is not the changeless Mame. Namelessness, the blank that was before both heaven and earth. Naming, the mother of all living things. To understand the mysteries of Tao, empty yourself of all desire. To understand its outward forms, fill yourself with all desire. Tao and the world flow from the same source, but differ in name. Their oneness is a mystery upon a mystery, the gateway to the essence of everything that is. This text functions as a set of 3 postulates: that labels can obscure the things they name, that our desires dictate what we are capable of perceiving, and that stillness is a prerequisite for clarity. These 3 ancient paradoxes correspond to 3 specific branches of modern social science. Laozi begins with a warning: the name that can be named is not the changeless name. It suggests that the moment we label a thing, we risk losing sight of its actual nature. In the 1980s, psychologist Stephen Hayes and his colleagues developed acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, to address the psychological consequences of this exact pattern. A central concept in ACT is cognitive fusion, when a person treats their thoughts as reality rather than temporary mental events. For example, if someone thinks, "I am unlovable," and treats it as fact, the label dictates their behavior. They stop trying to form connections because they fuse with the name they assign themselves. To counter this, clinicians use cognitive defusion to restore the gap between the thought and the thing it names. Research in the Journal of Contextual Behavioral Science shows these techniques reduce the believability of negative thoughts by up to 50%. While the strong form of the Whorfian hypothesis, the idea that language entirely determines thought, is generally rejected, empirical evidence confirms that the labels we apply to our experiences shape our behavioral reality. Treating a name as an absolute truth generates measurable distress. By recognizing labels as labels, we restore the distance Laozi described 2,500 years ago.
The chapter's second paradox concerns desire. To understand the mysteries, empty yourself of all desire. To understand its outward forms, fill yourself with all desire. Our modern world assumes pursuit leads to fulfillment. But in 1971, psychologists Philip Brickman and Donald Campbell identified a cycle called the Hedonic Treadmill. Their theory of hedonic adaptation states that humans return to a stable baseline of happiness regardless of major life changes. In 1978, Brickman tested this by surveying recent lottery winners, expecting their happiness to remain permanently elevated. He compared them to accident victims who had become paraplegic, assuming their baseline would stay permanently depressed. The data contradicted both assumptions. Over time, both the winners and the accident victims drifted back toward their original emotional baselines. This reveals the trap of the treadmill. The mechanism we use to find satisfaction, the pursuit of the next goal, is the same mechanism that ensures the satisfaction is temporary. The Hedonic Adaptation Prevention, or HAP model, identifies activities that actually sustain well-being, intrinsic enjoyment, gratitude, and presence. These activities align with Laozi's description of emptied seeing. They suggest that long-term well-being is not a result of external striving, but of a specific quality of attention. Chapter closes with the image of a gateway to essence. Reaching this gateway requires a quality of focus that is increasingly difficult to maintain. In 1971, the same year the hedonic treadmill was proposed, economist Herbert A. Simon provided the foundational insight for what we now call the attention economy. Simon observed that in an information-rich world, a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. Today, digital platforms weaponize this scarcity, using behavioral psychology to maximize cognitive engagement. This environment induces a state of continuous partial attention, where the mind is never fully present because it is always being pulled by competing stimuli. We attempt to adapt through cognitive offloading, outsourcing memory and navigation to digital tools. While this reduces immediate load, it deepens our reliance on the systems that are fragmenting our attention in the first place. While some cognitive models of dual processing face replication challenges, the biological limits of working memory remain a fixed constraint. When those limits are exceeded, stress rises and decision quality declines. The stillness Laozi described as a gateway is structurally incompatible with the modern default of overstimulation. To see the mystery, the attention must first be protected. Clinical psychology, happiness research, and cognitive science arrive at a shared set of observations that correspond to the architecture described in Chapter 1. These findings do not suggest that we must eliminate all goals or abandon our vocabulary. They point toward the cultivation of a structural gap, a deliberate space between the label and the reality, or the stimulus and the mind. You can experiment with this gap using a technique from ACT. When an evaluative thought arises, prefix it with the phrase, "I am having the thought that." This single verbal shift creates the distance needed to see the thought as a mental ent rather than a fact. In Chapter 2, we will explore how the categories we use to name the world,